All right, let's get into it. Today, we're cracking open one of literature's biggest mysteries and one of its greatest love stories. We're talking about William Shakespeare, but probably not the Shakespeare you remember from school. We are diving into his secret love songs, the Sonnets.
Seriously, what if? Because that's pretty much what these poems are. They're this collection of super passionate, private, and honestly, kind of scandalous poems that have had people guessing for centuries. So now, this isn't just dusty old poetry, it's a 400-year-old drama, and it is filled with love, jealousy, and a ton of secrets.
Now, to really get the story, we first have to understand the world that it came from. So let's hop in a time machine and set the dial for Elizabethan England. What you've got to understand about this time is the incredible energy. For once, the monarchy was pretty stable, which meant people could think about more than just surviving. Brand new ideas about what it means to be human, this thing called humanism, were just exploding all over the place. England was sending ships out and exploring the world, and right at home in London, the entertainment industry was absolutely booming, leading to the opening of the legendary Globe Theatre. And at the dead center of that booming entertainment scene was one man. And I want you to forget those old, stuffy portraits you've seen. You gotta think of him as the biggest celebrity, the biggest rock star of his day. This is our guy, William Shakespeare. And he wasn't just some writer scribbling away in a lonely room. No way. This guy was a force of nature. He was an actor up on the stage. He was writing the most popular plays in town. He was considered the national poet. And he was a sharp businessman who co-owned his own theater company. He was a true icon. But while his plays were packing in huge crowds, Shakespeare was also working on something much more personal, something way more intimate. A collection of poems that would end up being his most mysterious work ever. So in 1609, a book gets published with 154 of his sonnets. And unlike his plays, which were obviously meant for everyone to see, these felt different. They were raw, they were emotional, and they seemed to be telling a very secret story. And just like that, a literary puzzle was born. And that right there is the million-dollar question. It's the one that has had scholars and fans arguing for hundreds of years. The sonnets read like a secret diary, a diary that lays out this intense, complicated love triangle. So who are the main players in this secret drama? All right, let's meet the cast. First up, we have the fair youth. This is a handsome, noble young man who the poet is just completely obsessed with for the first 126 poems. Then, bam. The whole tone shifts, and we meet the dark lady, and she is the complete opposite of what a perfect woman was supposed to be back then. She's mysterious, she's sexual, she's completely untrustworthy, and Shakespeare seems to be just helplessly caught between these two, feeling everything from adoration to betrayal to insane jealousy. This is not a simple love story. It's messy, it's passionate, and it's so incredibly human. Okay, before we get any deeper into all that drama, we kind of need to understand the code that Shakespeare was writing in. To solve this mystery, we've got to look at the blueprint for the poems themselves. And here's the blueprint. Every English sonnet is a perfect little 14-line package. It's built with 3 4-line sections, which are called quatrains. That's where he develops an idea. And it all wraps up with a 2-line zinger at the end called a couplet, which often delivers this huge punchline or a twist that you just didn't see coming. It's a really clever structure. And what about the rhythm? It's something called iambic pentameter. Now, that sounds super complicated, but I promise it's not. Just think of a heartbeat. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. 10 syllables in every line, 5 heartbeats. This rhythm is so natural, it's actually the secret sauce that makes his words so powerful and easy to remember, both in these poems and in his plays. Okay, so we know who the poems are for, and we know how they're built. But what are they really about? Let's dig into the big ideas, the powerful feelings that drove Shakespeare to write them in the first place. Oh man, these poems are just packed with these huge universal themes. You've got all the complicated sides of love, from this pure hero worship of the fair youth to this tormented obsession with the dark lady. You've got the heartbreaking idea that beauty just can't last. And then you get all the darker stuff like jealousy and selfishness. But maybe the biggest, baddest villain in this whole story is time itself. Shakespeare talks about time like it's an enemy army attacking a person's face. He writes this to the fair youth, painting this picture of 40 winters digging wrinkles or deep trenches into his beautiful face. I mean, what a terrifying image, right? To put it a little more bluntly, Shakespeare's message is basically this: time is coming for your face. He's saying, look, you're beautiful now, but time is on its way to destroy that beauty and there's nothing you can do about it.
So what can you do? How can any person possibly stand up to an enemy that you literally cannot stop? That's the huge problem that Shakespeare is trying to solve in these poems. And he comes up with two pretty brilliant solutions. First, he begs the fair youth to have children, to make a living copy of his beauty that can get passed down through generations. But then Shakespeare starts to find another, maybe even more powerful solution: art. He argues that by capturing the young man's beauty in his poetry, he can make it last forever. So how does he actually do that? How can a simple poem defeat something as powerful as time? Well, Shakespeare had a few secret weapons up his sleeve, a set of poetic superpowers that make his words timeless. His first superpower is personification. This is when you give human qualities to something that isn't human. Like in one famous sonnet he says about his own poem, "So long lives this, and this gives life to thee." The poem isn't just ink on a page anymore. It's a living thing that can actually breathe life into its subject and make them immortal. And his other key superpower is the metaphor. He doesn't just say, "I feel old." No, he says he is the twilight. He is the fading light after the sun goes down. By comparing himself to that, he creates this deep emotional feeling, and we can actually feel that quiet sadness of getting older right there with him. So here's the bottom line. The sonnets are so much more than a 400-year-old love story. They were like Shakespeare's personal laboratory for figuring out what it means to be human, to love, to lose, to be jealous, and to fight like hell to make something, anything, last forever. And that kind of brings us to one last thought. Shakespeare believed that in a world where everything fades, art was the one thing that can make beauty immortal, which leaves me with a question for you. If you could use art to save one thing from being forgotten, what would you want to make last forever?